Good afternoon. My name is Camila Pollard, and I am a Dean's Public Policy Student Ambassador. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the Winter 2021 installment of the Student Spotlight Series hosted by the UCR School of Public Policy. Our Student Spotlight Series is aimed at showcasing to a larger external community the talents, research, community involvement, advocacy, and/or other notable work of our very own public policy students here at UC Riverside. Before I introduce our student speaker, I would first like to go over the format of today's webinar. Our student speaker will be given a presentation for the first portion of the event. Afterwards, I will bring up a panel of fellow public policy students to serve as discussants for a student roundtable with our speaker. Then, we will allot some time at the end for audience questions. Audience members, you can submit your questions for our student speaker anytime throughout the seminar via the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Please do not send your questions via chat, but rather the Q&A box below. Now, I'd like to introduce our speaker. We are delighted to have my fellow public policy classmate, Vivek Kakar, join us today. Vivek is a third-year public policy student here at the UCR School of Public Policy. He serves as one of the Dean's Brand Ambassadors, hoping to share the hands-on learning that attracted him to the SPP with the larger community. Outside of school, Vivek works as a press intern in the office of Congresswoman Katy Porter in the U.S. House of Representatives and was formerly a National Turnout Fellow in the 2020 election. Vivek focuses on modernization of government and the role social media plays on facilitating democracy. Now, Vivek is working to bring the Roosevelt Network to UC Riverside and is here today to tell us all about this exciting opportunity coming our way. We're delighted to have you here today, Vivek.
My pleasure. Let me go ahead and share my screen, but thank you so much. First, I want to just start off by thanking the ambassadors for putting this event on and giving us this platform to have a soft launch for the Roosevelt Network here. And to Dean Dialalakar for his vision with the network in starting it. So, like Camilla said, my name is Vivek Kakar. I'm the founding executive director of the upcoming UC Riverside chapter of the Roosevelt Network. So the golden question on everyone's mind, what is the Roosevelt Network? Well, I'm finally able to give you a concrete answer that involves what it's going to look like here at UC Riverside. So let's dive right in. The Roosevelt Network is built on the principle that changing who writes the rules can help fulfill the ideals of American democracy and build true public power. So there's a national chapter that's affiliated with the Roosevelt Institute, who partners with the Presidential Library of FDR. And they have chapters across 40 states, across the United States, and on various campuses across our nation. Now soon at UC Riverside. And they're built around this kind of, I like to break it down in this kind of formula, where there are scalable policy solutions added with the youth voices that are driving those solutions. And ultimately, that is what builds true public power and is really what our democracy is all about. So let's break it down a little bit. So what are these scalable policy solutions? Well, just like the UCR School of Public Policy believes that the motto is solutions for the region, solutions for the world. We believe that local policy solutions can be applied at a larger scale, at the national or even the global scale. And so focusing on solutions that work for more than just us, plus empowering those youth voices. So changing who writes the rules make all the difference. And especially in our society, when we equip young people with the proper policy research tools, or even the proper tools to make policy, they are unstoppable. And so ultimately, by bringing all that together, by combining quality policy solutions and the youth voice, we can realize the ideals of American democracy and truly come back to fresh new ideas coming to the table and bringing those, highlighting those voices in the larger policy discussions that take place. So what does the Roosevelt Network bring to UC Riverside? How are we going to make all that happen? Well, first we have a national policy journal. It's called the 10 Ideas Journal, in that it has 10 ideas in it featuring work from members across the network, anywhere you may think. Everyone has an opportunity to write in it. They submit to this journal. And that's something that's new, that's unheard of almost in the undergraduate sense, where research at that level can be featured at the national level. And then 2 paid incubator opportunities that help you build out your policy ideas, that really work to educate people on how we go from thinking thoughts to producing policy and bringing change to our society. And then 3 national fellowship programs are also available to members, thanks to the national Roosevelt Network that exists. So connected all through one chapter on campus that in and of itself hosts local policy discussions, trainings, and events through a special partnership with the School of Public Policy. And so that's kind of what we are looking to bring to UC Riverside. And so the West Region, we're joined today by some of our West Region leadership. So thank you for showing up and showing out today. So we're proud to be joining this West Region. We actively partner with other chapters in our region. For example, there's an event today, and then our event today, and then the Cal Berkeley event is taking place later today. So we partner with each other, we listen in on each other's ideas and host a larger discussion about policy and the solutions that we're seeing in this West region. And obviously it's just another way for us to voice and collaborate. And so the officers for the West region put on a West Region conference each year to further facilitate that policy discussion among schools and in our region, and to host more training and alumni opportunities to members. And so we're joining the ranks. UC Riverside is joining the ranks of UCLA, University of Washington, Cal Berkeley, and the list goes on, and they're expanding too. So that's the greatest thing, is we're never just talking about policy here at UC Riverside. Once we have that conversation here, we go to other schools, we go to a larger network. And I think that's a big reason of what makes Roosevelt Network so great. So here's a little video that kind of reflects what this is all about.
Young people recognize that our futures are at stake.
Climate change is here, racial injustice is here, job instability is here, and they recognize that now is the time to take action on those things.
What does it look like to build a youth movement and to elevate the voices of students in an inclusive way?
Young people have been historically excluded from creating the rules that in fact govern the economic and social realities that impact all of us. And by including their voices, by inviting their voices into the space, we are able to come up with solutions that are much more reflective of all the communities from across this country, not just a snapshot of the priorities of a select few.
So it's about empowering youth voices. The main takeaway from that video that at least I found, and especially with this research that we've done before kind of launching at UC Riverside, is the importance behind empowering youth voices. When we take a look at what that means, we take a look and see that in 2020, 1 in 10 eligible voters will be members of Gen Z. They will be among our peers, and that the numbers are growing. I mean, we just time will tell, but we just kind of overtook the silent and older generation. But our ranks are growing. We are becoming larger stakeholders of the policy of our society, and by empowering ourselves to have educated voices at the table about the decisions that are going to affect us in the future, we are setting ourselves up to have a say in what our future looks like. Projections now suggest that while this graph shows about 10%, that it's actually 17%. And so there are increases in our numbers. a little bit about my background and why this kind of just ticks a nerve with me a little bit is that this past summer, I was the social content deputy on Katy Porter's campaign for re-election in California's 45th district here in Orange County. And what we found is that a large percent of the youth stood up and mobilized their community around not only Katy Porter per se, but around some key issues. There are people, when you get involved, people normally get involved because they've got an issue that is so dear to them, that they want to change something. And this highlights a really important thing. This figure annoys the heck out of me because of the potential here. In 2016, the eligible number of voters who were 20 to 35 outweighed the number of voters who were 36 to 51, but the voter turnout was so less. So these issues that we're seeing now, the issues in 2020, whether it's racism, whether it's healthcare affordability and access, whether it's climate change and the environment, whether it's COVID. I think that this graph here by Circle shows that 79% of young people say that COVID has made them realize the importance of politics in their everyday lives. It takes for me, it's a little hilarious that it says that it takes a national or a global pandemic to mobilize, but honestly, that's where we're going for. The stakes are so high that especially with issues like climate change, people and young people want to believe that their generation has the power to create change and want to create that change. So it's a matter of providing them a platform to do so and the education to know how to go about to change their community. 83% believe that they can create change. And I think that empowering that 83% with the correct tools will be the work that we need to do to make sure our society is living up to its full potential. So how does, coming back home a little bit, how does the Roosevelt Network plan on supporting those youth voices? Well, we're empowering by educating. Educating is the key here. This sleeping giant that this youth voice is, can be empowered and awoken almost by providing training and experience and education in policy workshopping, policy writing, publication, networking, advocacy, and so much more. As soon as young people now realize what's at stake and they're given the tools, they will come out and change the game. I mean, when we looked back at the Senate races for John Ossoff and Warnock in Georgia after the election, we saw that in some areas that the key was the youth vote, and that while in politics, appealing to the youth vote is a little bit different than creating change, than creating policy, but that just goes to show you that we have the ability to make those decisions about who's making the decisions. So why not step up and write the policies, write the rules? So, and I'm not doing this alone. So I want to take this moment to introduce our board, who is going to be helping to empower those youth voices. We've got Gavin Cho, who's our operations director, Maria D'Souza, who's our communications director, Brendan Rooks, who is our finance director, and Sana Joffrey, who will be the editor-in-chief of our upcoming Concilium online journal. More to come on that later. And so here are the next steps, because what we want to do is start this educate. We're excited. We're excited to get this out and to get policy running. And so our next steps are that we're going to launch in the spring of 2021 fully. And the board is working hard to set all these pieces in place so that we're ready for our members. And this is what the next few weeks look like. So attending the Student Spotlight, getting this first hearing of what the Roosevelt Network is and what we're so passionate about in week 10, which we know is a hard time for a lot of people. But go ahead and register as a member on our page, sppstudents.ucr.edu/Roosevelt. We are open to all students at UC Riverside. And so this is not just for SPP students, this is for everyone, because we believe that also healthcare policy is going to be written by doctors given those tools to write policy by experts in those fields. And so we want to highlight that and follow us on social media so you can get those updates on what's going on. And in the spring, when we start to launch, attend our info sessions. We'll have more concrete policy information. We'll have more information about what day-to-day is going to look like. And those info sessions will be a great way to get that information out to you, but also for you to learn about what to expect. And then look out for our first email in week 3 or 4 with more information on just getting started and kind of starting this train to empower those youth voices. And so if you're excited, keep up with us here. I'm going to put this up while I talk a little bit more, but this is an opportunity that reflects what power we have, and for those of us here, I mean, we understand that policy is important. HR 1 was just passed by the House, and this policy has crazy implications on the future of our nation. And so involving the youth in drafting that is huge, and understanding that is a part of the education that is done here at the UCR School of Public Policy, but also that is taken forward by the Roosevelt Network as a success program of the SPP. And so I encourage you to visit our website, register as a member, and follow us on social media as we get ready to embark on this journey of awakening a sleeping giant, of making sure that we finally get a seat at the table. As young people, we've been excluded from the table because we're naive, but that's no longer the case. As soon as we're educated, as soon as we're able to provide this information about what policy looks like, then we damn sure better be getting that seat at the table and making those solutions that we want to see for our future to come. With that, Camilla, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation, Vivek. At this time, I would now like to bring in a panel of fellow students for a roundtable with our speaker. They are Uthman Alawi, Maddie Bunting, Arlette Flores Aparicio, and Andrea Reyes. As we move on to our roundtable, our audience members can begin typing in questions via the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screens. Please do not type your questions via chat. I will pose questions submitted via the Q&A box once we reach the audience Q&A. Now, on to our roundtable. Our first question comes from Arlette.
Thank you, Camila. And I want to say congratulations to Vivek and to the executive board of the Roosevelt Network for just accomplishing so much within the quarter. I know it can be very stressful, especially when we're in week 10. So I want to emphasize that for everyone. But my question is for Vivek, especially you were talking about interning with Katy Porter, kind of like your passions a little bit more, but where did that stem from, especially going into the Roosevelt Network? Was that in high school? I mean, maybe coming into UCR, or an experience that you had with Katy Porter?
Yeah, so not to knock on business majors, but I was a business major in high school. I knew that when I applied and as I was going through high school that I would go to college as a business major. But for me, it had like that switch that we all feel happened when I went to work in the city of Irvine City Hall as a city council intern. And so experiencing the work, experiencing the change that policy can make on our everyday lives is what brought me to public policy in the first place. So jumping to the Roosevelt Network, that passion of policy, that passion of creating change, I think seeing the tools that are used here that are given to students is what led me to be able to look at this opportunity for what it is, and to see that we are able to get involved and to actually make change by educating ourselves. And so as I grew, as I looked at those opportunities, I saw the opportunities that the Roosevelt Network offered, and I knew that this was valuable to have on campus. And so those incubators, those are some great opportunities where they take you for, you join in for a set of weeks and they help you build your idea. So they give you all the resources just humanly possible, and let you build out this idea and to turn it into actual policy. Then you go about advocating for that policy at the local, national, and state level. And so overall, to answer your question, I think that becoming an active voice in my community has just always been there. And I think that this is just yet another platform that we can take advantage of to do that.
I actually have a question for you, Vivek. I know after your presentation and even word of mouth about the Roosevelt Network has piqued a lot of interest from different students, throughout UCR. So I was just wondering what the quarterly responsibilities of a Roosevelt Network member would look like.
That's a good question. So in my original kind of research with Sana Jaffrey, we looked at a lot of different chapters. We saw, what do each member, or what is required of each member at each chapter. And I think that that Maria DeCisa, our communications director, has a really good answer for you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maria, the communications director. As a Roosevelt Network member, our responsibilities is to create a diverse think tank where members from various backgrounds, specifically minorities, which have been denied political power in the past, are able to create policy changes and kind of give their opinion and talk more and get other people involved that they know to bring more attention to minority communities.
And so we want our students, our members, to bring their ideas and work with us as a chapter, to talk with other members, to talk with members from even other chapters at that point, to start working on their idea. And then we want to provide them the training to learn about how to turn this idea into tangible policy memos and policy just written out ideas. And so the kind of responsibilities of a member would just be to be active and to be thinking about what are some solutions to policy issues that you've seen that you'd like to discuss, and how do you want to go about changing your community for the better.
Thank you both for answering my question. I genuinely appreciate that. Andrea has the next question.
I wanted to say I really liked how you referred to our young population as a sleeping giant, because it really is a sleeping giant. I know this past election, the 2020 election, I think it had like the highest amount of young voters turnout. So I think we're getting there, but we definitely need more people to get on the train and join us with speaking out, right? But my question to you is, so you said that the network supports student-led policy campaigns. Do you have any specific policies in mind that the UCR chapter may champion in the future?
Yeah, so, first of all, we support all ideas. We want to test the merits of all ideas. I think that even at this UCR School of Public Policy, that's something that is just made aware, is that no matter your idea, it's welcome. It's going to be workshopped, it's going to be built on. And so Brendan my finance director, has a better answer for me, for you than I would. But, we want members to bring a sea of ideas to work on. But Brendan, why don't you go ahead and take this one?
Yeah, of course. So like Vivek said, we really want to promote ideas coming from our membership. So as a result, we're really going to rely on our members to come to us with their proposals, and we'll work on it. We'll figure out, okay, how can we do this? And like Vivek said, it's really talking about trying to hit the entire membership of UCR. We want members from as many majors as we can get. We want, because each of them have their own expertise and their own opinions, and we really want to welcome a broad range of opinions and outlooks into our organization so we can be as strong as we can. However, from the national chapter, there are a set of 4 primary issue areas. So we'll kind of be following along those, but we're not necessarily constrained to them. So we have a lot of freedom with what we can do. And those 4 main issue areas are corporate power. So that's kind of trying to tackle the power of big corporations within our society. education, jobs, and worker power. So that's kind of expanding access to education, expanding worker rights, and expanding kind of the level and the quality of jobs that we have in our country. The third main issue area is climate and economic transformation. There's a bunch of talk about all the climate stuff, especially with everything that's going on in Texas and the fires that we had last year. And so it's a really prevalent issue within our society that we need to tackle, not only at a national level, but seeing what we can do within our community and how that can translate to a national stage. And then the fourth main issue area, of course, is just progressive thought. So that kind of is where it comes into the very broad ranging kind of area. So we want to make sure that we just encourage progressive ideas and forward thinking ideas moving forward. And then like Vivek had mentioned, the incubators. So there's two kind of main incubators at the Roosevelt, the national chapter kind of focus on, and that's a public goods incubator and a financialization incubator. And those are, so members can go ahead and apply to those incubators, and if they get accepted, it's a paid position wherein you work and you have the support and the resources of the national chapter to kind of work with your ideas. And the cool thing about those is that you don't necessarily need a background in those. You can come in and say, hey, like, I really want to learn about financialization, or I really want to learn about how I can expand access to public goods. And then you'll work with the national chapter resources to really expand on your idea and how you can carry that out effectively.
The main takeaway here is that we want members to come with their ideas. This, is about what you're passionate about and building to make sure that we can give you those tools to turn passion into policy. And so we have, these guidelines or these kind of chapters or the different categories, but they're no different than the SPP's kind of the categories that you can take within the public policy major of your specifications of what you want to study. So this is, the main takeaway is just what you're passionate about is the policy that we want to focus on.
Thank you, Vivek and Brendan. Maddie actually has a follow-up question for you.
Yes, well, first of all, congratulations. I know this has been a lot of work and a long time coming, so just congratulations to Vivek, but as well as the executive board. Talking about the resources, I'm curious if there are any, congressional allies that work with the Roosevelt Institute, if, the UCR chapter, if you all are looking forward to one day, this may take some time, but reaching out to any IE representatives, city council members, board of supervisors, just anyone, once you do work with members on creating policy ideas, if you have any plans to kind of implement that through the chapter as well as the Institute.
Yeah, so another aspect of the Roosevelt Network is, once you've kind of built out your idea and we've got this policy kind of built out, it's about advocacy, because you can have all the ideas you want, but until you don't advocate for them, until you don't advocate for yourself, those policies don't go anywhere. And so I know that especially congressional offices that have colleges or universities in them. So for example, Mark Takano's office, or even personally in Katy Porter's office, the word of universities is valued. And so we want to be able to advocate to those partners of the university. But then we also want to be able to let our members choose. So, if there's a local issue that people are going to talk to or are going to work on, then we want to talk to the right people about that as well. So I think that as a chapter, we're a little bit of ways away from that happening. But I mean, personally, I'd love to see where we head in that scenario. And I think that Sana can add a little bit on here as well. But where we put policies, we want to first have them. And so it'll be interesting to see where advocacy efforts take us. But I know that in the past, for example, the USC chapter has advocated at the local level, but continues to advocate at the state level as well. And so the doors are open, and as we come up with our ideas, we want to be able to go to the correct people.
Yeah, I can sort of elaborate on that. So in terms of the current network, we do have access, or actually the Roosevelt Network does have sort of an array of scholars that are sitting as fellows, which is actually, I think, really important in terms of looking at the network, their alumni, and who we can connect with. And the second part, I guess, I was just thinking the sky's the limit, right? We're just starting out, maybe not in the next month, but eventually we can see plenty of guest speakers and collaborators. I think really there's tons we could do, and I think our membership can look forward to that.
Thank you. Sounds exciting.
Yes, very exciting. Thank you both, Vivek and Sana. I just want to take a moment to remind our audience to please go ahead and type in any questions they have via the Q&A feature below. Please do not type in your questions via chat. I will post questions that are submitted via the Q&A box once we reach the audience Q&A. Uthman has the next question.
Yes, great presentation as always, Vivek. So as mentioned before, you were talking about the networking opportunities within the Roosevelt Network at the UCR chapter and then also outside the UCR sphere. So I was just wondering, when students first join the Roosevelt Network and gain more experience with it, what can they expect from those networking opportunities, both in the short term and then also the long term?
Yeah, so, just building some background to the answer to this question. As I work on the Hill and talk to the people who supervise me, I mean, the one thing that they stress is networking. That's so important. And so I personally believe that, being at the School of Public Policy here at UC Riverside, the biggest assets that we have are the people around us. I may be focusing on one thing, but my peers focusing on another, and to be able to network with them, to work with them, as a result of that networking, is immeasurable. And I think that that's extremely special. I mean, in COVID times, it's a little bit difficult, but the power of it is still the same. Gavin has a better answer than I do, but and I'll let him chime in here about what the network has to offer in terms of networking.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of networking opportunities, there's there's several different avenues that you can take. The first one, and I guess sort of the easiest one, would be obviously the relationships that you're going to build with people within the chapter at UCR itself. So you're going to be talking with people who sort of have similar experiences in that they go to the same university as you, and they maybe have just sort of similar life experiences that have led them to the point where they're students at UCR at least. But they're also deeply passionate about some sort of a policy issue, because ultimately, if you're joining the Roosevelt Network, it's because you feel called to advocate and write legislation for a specific policy or an array of policies. But outside of the chapter as well, Vivek showed in his presentation a little bit earlier, all the schools that are involved just in the western part of the United States. There's multiple regions outside of there, but just even within our region, there are several different chapters that you're going to have the opportunity to interface with and bounce your ideas off of and brainstorm with. And so that's another incredible opportunity, as well as I think that Sana mentioned it, with having the potential to interact with fellows to help sort of inform your policies as well. So there's a ton of different opportunities to network, both here at UCR itself, and then also outside of that at a regional or sort of a higher national level.
And so something I want to reiterate here is the West Region Conference is open to the entire chapter. So this is one of those key areas where you're able to meet with members from every chapter in the West Region, and work on those policy ideas and talk about things that may be happening in our society at that moment that the conference takes place. But it's all about getting to know the people around you and the people creating policies and working with them to bolster their ideas. And so networking, I think we believe it's an extremely important part of policy creation, and hope to foster that as well in this process.
Thank you both. I'm going to pass on the next question to Maddie.
Yes, so Vivek, as well as Brendan, you both have previously mentioned that you want your members to represent UCR, and have students across different majors such as environmental science and psychology. I'm just curious how you plan to utilize and incorporate the knowledge and backgrounds of students in different subject areas within the Roosevelt Network.
Yeah, and so a part of this just comes from the diversity at the School of Public Policy. I mean, Maddie herself comes from the political science department. We've got Maria, who is our communications director, but is a political science major. And so we want to include that diversity. We want the chapter to represent that diversity because, like I said in my presentation, even the people who create the best policy are the people who have some passions or something tied to that. So, it makes sense for a doctor to create healthcare policy. It makes sense for a single parent to create policies about single parents. And so Sana can speak a little bit more about this, but in terms of interdisciplinary natures of just the interdisciplinary nature of public policy, inevitably that we want to be able to showcase the diversity of thought and the diversity of specification here at UC Riverside in this chapter. We're open to everyone. We want to welcome everyone's ideas, and we want experts or people who are soon to be experts. So that's all of us speaking to those areas that we are studying at a microscope's lens, through a microscope's lens at. But Sana can speak more to how that looks in our chapter and in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you actually hit it right on the head there. But I think as public policy majors or people who are involved with policy, if it's one thing we know, it's policy is everywhere, right? It impacts pretty much everything in every area, every subject, every discipline. It's part of the reason that public policy as a major here at UCR is so interdisciplinary. We have multiple tracks students can pursue. We have a lot of double majors within public policy because people do see such strong areas of overlap. And I think it's so important that we are being cognizant of that we are including other voices, people with not necessarily different experiences, but different educational backgrounds, different passions, which I think pretty much all of our board members have been noting in their answers. It's so important to make sure we are including that. And some of the things that we have in the works, like the journal, those are definitely going to be playing on those too. We'll have different policy areas open for students to write about, to talk about, and the same thing will be reflected within the chapter itself, our meetings, our discussions.
And I mean, policy is not about the snapshot of what a select few want. It's about what affects each and every one of us and how it can better the lives of each and every one of us. And so I think that involving expert voices and involving voices that maybe don't speak the language of policy, but are then educated to speak the language of policy as a result of the knowledge that they have from their kind of original field. I think that's the most important thing.
Thank you both. Again, Vivek, such a great presentation, and as well as from your board members as well, answering these questions. At this time, I'd like to transition from questions from our ambassadors to our audience. And our first question is from an anonymous attendee. For those of us graduating this year, is there a way to become associated or be involved with the Roosevelt Network?
Yeah, so we launch in the spring, so you will have some time to get involved. And what we can promise you is that this year will be an exciting year to be a part of us. I mean, we will be launching a lot of new things after we launch ourselves. And so being a member in this sense will gain you that experience and that little taste of what the Roosevelt Network has to offer. And I mean, as we build, we'd love for you to follow follow us as a chapter, as one of our alumni, and be invited back. I always think of it like SVP's Sam Roberts. Once you're family, you're family. He's been invited back, and so the students here at the SVP are going to go on to do great things, and so we want you to come back and to follow us as alumni and to support the network and support the school as well. But this is something that we can start building now. You know, if you're graduating, you've got some experience on your hands too. And we want to bring that to this chapter. And I think the best way we can facilitate that is, and the way that the network does is that, you know, once you graduate, you join not only our alumni network at the local level, but you join the National Alumni Network as well. And so just a few weeks ago, the UCLA chapter had a meeting with an alumni who worked for the CDC. And so she may not have been at the UCLA chapter, but she was an alumni, an alum of the Roosevelt Network in and of itself. And so we, you know, the network is good about facilitating and letting you kind of participate in this, even beyond your years here at the UCR School of Public Policy, or at UCR in general. And so that alumni network is something that we kind of cherish, and that's a great way to stay involved, even if you only have, you know, a semester here or a quarter here with us in the Roosevelt Network chapter here.
Thank you, Vivek. I'm going to pass it back to Maddie for her to pose her question.
Yes, if I may, you mentioning Sam Roberts, a previous ambassador and now alumni of UCR. You know, I know so many of our public policy students, but UCR students also have this like inner drive that they accomplish these really great things, and they go above and beyond like what you are all doing and establish a program, or, you know, an internship or something just really amazing that we've showcased through the Student Spotlight before. So I'm wondering for you, Vivek, but please, I'd love if your board could chime in as well, where that personal drive comes from, what you kind of, any big accomplishments you hope to make through the network, but in life as well. You know, I just think it's so inspirational to have students who who utilize their resources and grab opportunities that I think some students may not even know they can, right? It can be intimidating at times. Like, how did you first find out about the Roosevelt Institute and network and figure, you know, I can do this and follow through with the process?
Yeah, so little fun story there, and then I'll let my board jump in about kind of, you know, what their mission is and just things like that. But Sana and I found out about Roosevelt Network through an email to the dean, nonetheless. So our new chapter coordinator, the West Region new chapter coordinator, Joanne Lee from USC, emailed our dean saying that this is something that can happen, and introduced us to it initially. But when the dean handed it off to Sana and I to do some more research about what the Roosevelt Network looks like, what that would look like here at UCR, we were hesitant at first, I'll be honest. But as Sana and I kept digging and kept seeing what this opportunity really was, we knew that this was something that we could not pass up for UCR to have. And so answering the question about how we came across it, we came across it by luck, but we're here to turn it into passion and to turn it into a true mission of changing who's writing the rules and empowering our students just another way of empowering our students at the School of Public Policy and at UCR in general. But as a second part to answer that first question about passion and drive and what we're looking for here is, for me as the executive director, it'll be, you know, my biggest achievement as executive director if we can continue to start and continue to facilitate a policy discussion here at UC Riverside and then turn it into that policy piece, the policy piece. You know, it'll be kind of more mainstreamed once we have the journal up and running in a few quarters, but it's the greatest success if we're able to empower a voice, give it the tools, and see where it goes from there. I personally will be working on a lot of networking opportunities with other chapters. So I've been in talks with UC Berkeley and UCLA as kind of like UC or UC brothers and sisters. You know, I also want to be able to provide those opportunities to everyone. And I think that that's a big part of what the network really means. But I'll hand it off to Gavin next to answer this question, and then we can go through the board that way.
Awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I also found out about this thing through an email, but it was asking for people to apply to join this executive board. And for me, I think that the reason why I decided it would be a unique opportunity is, first of all, because, you know, it is a cool opportunity to build something new and try to build something from the ground up. There's something just super special about that. And hopefully being able to use some of the skills that I've gathered in you know, the last 2 years at UCR to make something that's sustainable and successful. And I think that in terms of like the actual program of the Roosevelt Network, there is also some component of being able to interact with people who share the same passions as I do, at least in terms of, you know, being passionate about policy and being passionate about, you know, just the notion that youth have the opportunity and the power to make real change happen. It was an opportunity that I couldn't give up. So yeah, I think that probably is a good capture of what why I joined.
Oh, we'll pass it off to Brendan next.
Yeah, so like Evan, I actually heard about the network through an email, and you know, I reached out to Vivek about it, and I was asking some questions, and I was doing some of my own like independent research on what the network looked like and what it was and what it stood for. And I found like the mission and their main focus areas, and I was like, oh wow, this is something that really resonates with me. Like this is something I'm really passionate about. I believe that change comes from communities, and then that flows upwards, and that's kind of the whole ethos behind not only like the Roosevelt Network, but also the School of Public Policy is solutions for the region, solutions for the world, as Vivek had mentioned earlier. And so that's kind of what really just drew me. And I was like, oh man, I really need in. And, you know, I'm just excited to facilitate an experience for our future board members to engage in the network and all the resources that it presents to the students. I think that's an amazing opportunity, because I don't think there's as many opportunities like that on campus. And so something like this that really centers the students is kind of an amazing experience, while it also gives them the resources from outside actors.
Maria, do you want to chime in here?
Yes, so I found the Roosevelt Network through the UCR political science page. Actually, they had reposted a post from School of Public Policy. And then I started doing some research. I kind of Googled what the Roosevelt Network was about, and I fell in love with it completely since, firstly, I'm a first-generation student and first-generation immigrant, so I've always had like a really big passion about helping out the community that I kind of was brought up in. So after seeing their kind of mission statement, I was like, wow, this is something that I could really work on and help my community and other communities that may need help as well.
And that's so important too, especially with first generation, because it's about the education, it's about the tools. Sana, would you like to jump in real quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like Vivek said, it was kind of by chance that we got this opportunity to really work on something. And I think both of us, we found it to be such a meaningful opportunity to bring something to the table for students at UCR. I mean, we've got so many exciting things in the work. I'm just excited for everyone else to see that.
The element of talking to other schools is, you know, what ultimately sold it to me, is because we have, I mean, at the level that we are right now, everyone is doing some fantastic work in their studies, and to be able to share that and to be able to understand that this is a network of people who are gaining those resources and starting to think about things that, I mean, with a lens that no other generation has, is what is insane. I mean, just let's think about where Gen Z has been, just even in the past year. Our view on the world is so different. And so to provide those resources and to hold that up is one of the most important things that we can do right now.
And to start a program like this virtually is an accomplishment in itself, I have to add, on top of all the outreach and communication that you're doing as well.
Well, I mean, I will say though, I mean, I've spoken to SUP students, and so one of the things that this virtual platform lets us do is that we're able to connect with people across the nation. I mean, I work in DC and go to school in Riverside, and that's not possible without the virtual format. But all the commendations go to my board for this work of how do we turn this program that normally would be in person into something that can be virtual, it can be digestible, and can happen on a laptop screen. And so so that is something that's one of the challenges that we've faced, especially in launching, but that we think that because of the importance of the work, it is just one of those hurdles that we will get over, and be stronger because of it.
Thank you, Vivek. And I think that brings a great transition to our next question from our lab.
So my question for the board is upcoming events or even workshops. I know even talking about networking, I feel like I'm a big component of LinkedIn, and I like to use it to be able to talk to people. Is there going to be a platform like that, or even having workshops on etiquette, professionalism? So yeah, that was my question.
Yeah, so we do have a LinkedIn page. Our info sessions are coming up in the first few weeks of spring, which I'll let Gavin talk about a little bit more about that, and what the plan is there for that. But we also just want to partner with the people on campus, with the organizations on campus, to offer those things. So we're already in a partnership with the UCR School of Public Policy, and we see that going places and offering invaluable events and things like and things like that for our members. But kind of just starting off first, we'll hit those info sessions.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit more about sort of what those info sessions are going to sort of entail. So really, they're an opportunity for any person who's even interested. You don't have to be willing to make a full-on commitment to join the program, but really, if you're interested, we highly encourage that you attend some of these info sessions, because we are going to cover some of the material that we covered today, but we're going to go a little bit more in depth and talk a little bit more on the specifics of how some of this stuff actually is going to happen. But beyond that, it's also going to be an opportunity for us to just sort of get to know you all a little bit more, and for you all to get to know us a little bit more, and a little bit sort of more intimately than just, the name and the title, right? So if you're interested, again, those are going to be in the first few weeks of spring quarter. So keep an eye out for some information on that. And again, if anything that was mentioned here has piqued your interest, I highly encourage that you just carve out an hour or so of your time to join these info sessions. And yeah.
And in terms of those partnerships, our peer academic advisors do a lot of work with professionalism trainings and hosting workshops like that. And so, as we partner with the School of Public Policy, we'd love to partner with them too. It's all about those tools. It's all about educating people and providing them resources. And so whatever channel we can do that, we're more than happy to partner and get the word out.
Sounds exciting for your upcoming event this next quarter. I hope, so much success to you all. And the next question comes from Andrea.
Right, so my question is kind of, Maddie had touched upon it earlier, but I kind of want to dive deeper into it. Is you started your own, you're starting a new chapter here at UCR. What have you learned about starting your own program or chapter, and what have been your experiences? What advice do you give to students who want to start their own chapter? And what do you speak from your experience?
In this very moment, the words that come to my mind are slow down. We got this first idea in the fall of this year. And now we're here materializing in the last week of winter into spring. So we did rush. We didn't rush. We worked quickly. We moved quickly on this, but we were thorough in our detail. our proposal to the dean was almost 30 to 40 pages. So we were very thorough about what this is going to look like. But what I would say is that you can't do this alone. I mean, even in the first initial research, I worked with Sana. We talked about, what this would look like, what this means, and what we would hope personally to bring to it as students of public policy ourselves. And then our team grew. We were working with Mark, who is the marketing manager for the UCR School of Public Policy, who helped us kind of realize, okay, what is this going to look like in the real sense? And his guidance has made all the difference. So first, big shout out to him. But then our team grew even more with Gavin, Brendan, and Maria, who are helping us realize what our vision was and what it's going to look like as a result of the blending pot of visions that we are bringing to the table. And so my principal kind of advice would be, don't work alone. That is the best mistake you can make in the terms of trying to establish something, is get your peers' ideas and let it become this big thing that everyone has a say in. Because at the end of the day, that's one, how it's going to live beyond just you. But two, that's what's going to make it so great, is we're so excited. But it's not just me being excited and these guys tagging along for the ride. We're all excited about this and we can't wait to see where this goes. And obviously, as my partner in crime about all of this, Sana has a really good answer to this as well.
Yeah, I'm going to take a second to be very frank with you all. There were a lot of panicked FaceTimes, a lot of middle of the night text messages. What if we did this? How about this? And I think it's really important, first of all, to have someone to bounce ideas off of. And I think we were lucky enough to have almost a like-minded vision in terms of, we want to get this done and we want to put forward a good product, a good opportunity for students. So if it's one thing, like Vivek said, make sure you have someone to work with and make sure you think things through, right? There's absolutely no need to rush any of this, because at the end of the day, what you want is something good to come out of it, right? Not a product, but a good product. And we took a lot of time to very thoroughly plan all the details, and just here we are today.
And that research element really does make all the difference. We talked to our own Laura Sosa's son who attends UC Berkeley about what the journal looks like there. And so how can we emulate that here, and what works, what doesn't work? We talked with our regionals or our regional officers with the Roosevelt Network to kind of further hone our ideas. So, we brought in ideas from everywhere, and that's what did that research, brought those ideas in, and that is altogether what made the difference.
We actually have another question from the audience, kind of backtracking to our Let's prior question. But when UCR's learning format goes back in person, to in-person instruction, will the Roosevelt Network host in-person interactive events?
So while it's important to change our society and do all the good work, it's also very important to take care of the health of our members and the health of ourselves. And so while we are all excited with the announcement that we're going to be going back into the fall for some in-person classes, we also we're going to be watching and waiting for direction from the authorities, from our school, from the School of Public Policy, and from those adults who and experts who understand the risk of it all and can help guide us into what we're going to be doing. So we don't, we know that we're going back in person. We don't know exactly when. We don't know exactly what that looks like. But either way, we're going to be meeting. Whether it's virtual, whether it's in person. And I think that referring back to those guidelines, referring back to when it is safe, we will, is the biggest thing here. And I think that also, it also speaks a lot to the policy. I mean, these policies that are in place are tedious sometimes. We've been at home since March of last year. We're rounding over a year of being at home, and this policy is in place for a reason. And I think that thinking about policy in that sense as well, and from kind of like the consumer end of policy, if I may, also matters. And I think that by practicing policy, by practicing what makes us all safe, is just another step in the process of policy creation, implementation, and retention of policy, of good policies.
Thank you, Vivek, for answering our audience question. And our last question comes from Uthman.
Hello. So you mentioned earlier about how you were planning on having a journal for the Roosevelt Network. So I was just wondering if you could talk a bit more about what exactly will be in that journal and what are the steps towards coming up with the idea and then approving it.
So I can't give any spoilers away. No. This journal is coming soon, sooner than you think. And it's a really exciting opportunity for the SPP students, but also open to UCR to showcase their ideas. And I think that while I may speak to it and I can provide all the information, I'm gonna let Sana take this one as the editor-in-chief of Concilium.
Thank you. So like Vivek said, there are a lot of exciting things coming forward. I mean, I'm not going to put it all out there because we're still finalizing some details, but the expectation is students can start submitting as early as fall. So we're putting things in action pretty soon, right? We'll be hosting a series of workshops. There'll be sort of collaborative projects, just making sure not only that students can engage in this, but that we give them the tools they need to actually build on that, to use that, not just for the journal itself, but actually working on things outside of the journal. It's a really great professional development opportunity, working on research, working on writing, just really important things that I think tons and tons of students could benefit from.
I can speak, however, to the 10 Ideas journal that the national kind of Roosevelt Network affords the members as an opportunity. The ideas in these journals are well polished, and so to be able to get to that platform, that our chapter and the chapters that be outside of UCR are going to work hard to establish these pieces that are ready for national publication, and these policies that make it to the national level tend to have very interesting implications and tend to be interesting policies that are advocated for and that really have to do with the student's perspective on the world. And I think, it's perfect that this was the last question and that this was, about this journal that's going to be another launch coming up in the future, because this is, again, leads back to tools and outlets. The SVP and UCR provide a number of outlets, and this is another one of them, where students can learn from experience and tie it all together in one nice little bow of a nicely worded policy memo, but the thought and the implementation of ideas and having these ideas be baked at such a kind of in an educated format. We've got faculty who are here to kind of provide assistance as well. And all these tools are available. And that's something that we want to just highlight here, is that we're empowering voices by education, that we are lifting voices by planting those seeds and making sure that we're doing this the right way and from an early age.
Thank you, everyone, for your questions. But unfortunately, that is all the time we have today. I would like to once again thank my fellow classmate Vivek Kakar for joining us this afternoon, as well as the rest of his board. Thank you all so much for joining us and for attending. Our next online event will be this Thursday, March 11th at noon, and it's an installment of the water seminar series titled Water Demand Forecasting for a Long-Range Water Reliability Plan. You can learn more about events like these hosted by the UCR School of Public Policy by visiting spp.ucr.edu. Till next time, thank you.